maybe kill it. And when the cell dies, a macrophage comes along and eats it up, cleans up the garbage. And then there's this is not important to this discussion, but then there's a decision made between these two cells as to which one will copy itself and repair the damage. I wish you were more impressed about that. Isn't that remarkable?
Amen.
And I don't know what's wrong with me today or you. Okay. Okay, oh good, good. I'm glad to hear that. Here's the problem. If your blood, which always has fatty particles in it, LDL, HDL, and there's 16 others that most people don't even know about, that we have been able to isolate and name, little water-soluble trucks, that's a metaphor, that carry fatty particles around. HDL, you all know that word, don't you? That is a water-soluble carrier that I often call a truck that has fatty particles inside of it. Y'all with me on that? It's water-soluble because if you sent fat into the blood, it would pool everywhere a vessel went up and down, right? Doesn't fat float on water? So the Creator transports fats in your blood in water-soluble containers. Got it? What's the name of another one besides HDL? LDL. Do you know any other names? No, everybody knows about those two. There are 16 others, but nevertheless. Pardon me? We'll get to all 16 of those in a few minutes. Here's the problem. If there's too much LDL, now you probably know that the HDL is not a problem, although it can be involved in what I'm about to show you. The HDL actually transports cholesterol from where it shouldn't be to the liver, where the liver disassembles it. So that's why the HDL is called the good cholesterol. There's no difference, folks, in the cholesterol inside the HDL particle or the LDL particle. There's no such thing as good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. It's all cholesterol. But to dumb it down to the people, the doctor said, well, this is good cholesterol, that's bad. Not true. There are two kinds of trucks, and we need both of them, actually. But when the trucks are out of balance, we have a problem. But nevertheless, when that macrophage is there, cleaning up the dead cell, are you all with me? It has, and I hope this makes sense to you after yesterday's little film about insulin receptors. Remember that? Yes. And I told you that there are many receptors on our cells to do various things. And this macrophage has got receptors all over it because it was designed to find stuff that shouldn't be there and eat it up. And that's what it does with these fatty particles. It eats them up, trying to make your blood a better place. Got it? The problem is, if there's too many of these fatty particles in your blood, the macrophage can no longer move. And he gets stuck there. So what do you suppose happens when he gets stuck there? We actually have a name for this. Some of you medical people, we call these foam cells. How many know about that? Anybody? Okay. What do you suppose happens to this foam cell that's sitting there? This macrophage that's dying. Another macrophage comes to clean it up. And while he's there, what happens to him? He gets full of the stuff in your blood, and he dies. What do you suppose happens next? Listen to this. It is the accumulation of these macrophages that is the soft plaque. Got it? And if I can get the fat low enough, and these particles in small enough number, would it make sense that the macrophages could clean up this plaque? Sure, it's exactly what happens. But you got to get the fat intake really low, and it does work. Now, this is an amazing slide that needs a lot more time than 2 minutes. But what I want you to notice here, there's several interesting words. Fast, slow, oxidize, and what is this kind of grayish green thing right here? What is it? That's a macrophage, and it has receptors on it for all these fatty particles. Are you all with me in the idea? And sometimes it's worse because what's happening? Whatever's going into this thing is going fast instead of slow. Y'all with me on that? And you understand the problem is, he's a good guy, but if he gets filled up with fatty particles, what happens to him? He becomes flat, right? Y'all tracking with me?
Yeah.
All right. This is going to be soft black, yeah. So, this is a whole textbook in a way to describe this, but the basic idea is that oxidization is bad. It makes this happen too fast. This guy over here, I told you that besides HDL and LDL, there were other particles, right? This is the most dangerous of all of them. The way we say it is, this is the most atherogenic. This guy right here, we aren't even measuring this. They are in Germany. This thing is, what do I mean when I say atherogenic? Causing atherosclerosis, right? This is the worst particle of all of them. And we find in people who are living poorly, they have more of these, not surprisingly. Y'all with me on this? It has a name, it's not terribly important, it's called LP(a). And phagocytosis just means that's the macrophage, pulling it inside. Y'all with me on that? Very interesting story. A physician friend of mine who taught at Loma Linda for 35 years, and then went to Loma Linda then went to Weimar to teach there, the staff. A very fine scholar and physician, started measuring the LP(a) in the Weimar staff. Y'all with me? I was the boss there for 2 years, 80 staff members, a lot of people. And he found that some of them had elevated LP(a). And he wanted to know what was causing it. And I'm sorry, I can't say his name at the moment. I'm suffering from temporary dementia. Wonderful fellow. Just love this man. We worked together overseas as well as in this country. And this is what he learned. He was a tremendous scientist. Never could get enough money to really do the studies that he wanted to. But he found that the staff that were eating meat analogs, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
It's a fancy word for veggie burgers and fried chicken, and help me name some others. Veggie all that. He found that the people that were eating meat analogs had the highest level of LP(a). A and B. He actually narrowed it down to this, something called isolated soy protein. In his opinion, this was the problem. Now, I'm sorry to tell you this because I have several friends who are Adventist book center managers. You may not know this. They make 80% of their profit on selling meat analogs, not on selling books, even though it's an ABC, a book center. And I love those guys, but they're in the wrong business, friends. It's sad. So isolated soy protein, for some reason, I don't think it's ever been completely figured out why, is a factor in heart disease. And so whenever you buy soy milk or other things made with soy, and most of those meat analogs are made with soy, did you know that? And the soy they're made with is isolated soy protein, which turns out to be, if you will, a toxic issue. So I'm sorry to tell you this, because some of you have boxes and boxes of that stuff in your garage.
Yesterday you stated soy milk was okay,
Yes.
but now you're saying the isolated is...
Soy milk is not one of those phony baloney or meat analogs. Now, I would rather have people eat soybeans. I just listened to a lecture this morning, by the way. I'm going to try to do something on cancer here before we're done. But I just listened to a lecture this morning by Neil Barnard, where he's discussing this whole issue. And I've known this kind of thing for a while, but he was going into some depth. And I mentioned this yesterday, didn't I? That soy actually helps prevent breast cancer, whereas the average physician today is telling their patients, "Oh, don't use soy." It actually helps prevent it. But anyway, Neil Barnard was dealing with that, talking about how a cancer tumor in the breast starts manufacturing its own estrogen. And estrogen makes if it's a hormone-dependent cancer, which 95% of breast cancer are hormone-dependent, which what we mean by that is certain hormones in the female body will make the cancer go faster, essentially estrogen. I'll come to you in a minute. You're going to be next after that lady, am I correct? But it turns out that soy interferes with that. It interferes with the tumor-making estrogen. There's a special enzyme, I won't get into that. And it also blocks the receptors on the tumor that the estrogen would like to occupy to make the tumor grow faster. Are you all with me? So it's amazing how these things get laced that soy is bad for you. But isolated soy protein, for reasons that I don't think anybody has ever been able to explain, is not wise. Y'all with me? How should I get that protein? How should I get... I would rather people ate the soybeans than just drank the soy milk. But it turns out there are studies that show just the soy milk, which is a refined product in a sense, is very beneficial. Probably better to eat soybeans. So I try to get Neva to serve edamame as often, you're number 3 here, as often as possible. Y'all know what I'm talking about, don't you? I especially like it because the salt she puts on the shell before you open the shell with your fingers, and then salt gets on the soybean and it tastes good.
Isn't it the isolated protein, isn't that just like concentrated part of the soy?
That's correct.
And the same with gluten. People that are gluten intolerant, you're just
well, gluten.
It's not a whole.
Gluten intolerance is a separate issue, but her point is well taken, folks. We really should not be. We should be eating the whole plant. Are you all with me? And so those meat analogs, folks, are unwise from beginning to end. I'm sorry to tell you that. Some of it I like the taste very much, but if you get Neva's cookbook, you can make stuff that's just as good as something for you. Number 2 was, help me remember. I know the issue. She's talking about the problem of Monsanto, which is now the aspirin company. Bayer has purchased Monsanto, and they make a product, as all of you know, called Roundup. It is a agent that kills plants. And they have very cleverly figured out how to change the enzymatic pathway in a plant so that the Roundup, which knocks out an enzyme, that's what Roundup does. It knocks out an enzyme in the plant that's necessary for the plant to convert energy so the plant dies. And they have found an enzymatic pathway around it. So they put a gene in the plant to make this enzyme that the plant can still live even though the other enzyme got knocked out. Did you follow all of that? And there's a big question as to whether, and by the way, about 90% of the soy grown in this country has been genetically modified. Now, I shouldn't go here, but I'm going to. And then I'll let you get up and have a break.
Dear, I'm ready to whenever.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sweetheart.
Just to remind you.
I need to be reminded. That's okay. I was asked one time to do a lecture on the GMO question. I thought I knew the answers. But guess what I did? I did some reading, to be sure. But guess what else I did?
Research.
I called about 6 of my friends. Scientists, physicians who are pretty good scientists. Physicians aren't scientists automatically. They're physicians. But many of them take enough coursework to be reasonably qualified scientists. And they all told me the same thing. And since most of you respect Neil Medley so much, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to tell you his exact words. And you understand, he and I are very close friends. I worked for him for a couple of years. In fact, I look like his father. The other day, more than the other day, I was taking him to the airport, helping him get his plane loaded up so he could fly away. And he said, "Wait a minute, Jim. I want to get a picture of you." I remember now that I had heard this a couple of years before, but I had forgotten. He says, "You look just like my dad." He says, "Let me take a picture." Okay, picture. He says, "Now turn around and walk away. You walk like my dad." Genetics is interesting stuff, isn't it? Anyway, these are Neil's exact words. And I hope that you're not offended by this. I asked him the question, "What about GMO?" And he said to me, "Jim, I don't think it's a problem, and I don't think it ever will be." Now, I'd like to take at least a half an hour to tell you why he would have said that. I'd love to do that. Some of you in here probably think, "That's outrageous. That stuff is terrible." But what he said is true, friends. And I'm okay if you want to avoid things that are genetically modified. Listen to me, friends. Every new cell your body makes is now genetically modified. Every new cell your body creates. And I mean, it would take me an hour to really give you enough background so you understood why all of my scientist friends, and a couple of them were physicians, said the same thing. I'm not pushing the use of GMO. Here's my problem. People will make non-GMO their health program. Could you be a non-GMO person and be eating junk food? Sure you could. That's my only concern. If you want to avoid it, you have my blessing. I think there's bigger fish to fry than non-GMO. Are y'all with me on this? Do a lot of you have some big fish to fry in turn? That's a wrong metaphor, isn't it? Am I right? You have some serious things to do. Isn't that right? Way bigger than GMO issues, folks. Are you all with me on this? Okay, number 3 was here.
Why?
I'm backing away because it makes you talk louder so people can hear.
Okay, why was there such an emphasis on how bad soy products and tofu and soy milk and all that was for a while?
It's a good
What's that
question.
all about?
It's a good question. I'm not sure we should take everybody's time to answer it, and it's probably multifactorial. But the idea that estrogen makes a cancer cell grow fast, I'm going to give you a quick summary. The idea that estrogen makes the breast cancer cell, if it was a hormone-dependent cell, faster. Somebody who didn't know what they were talking about assumed that phytoestrogens, what do I mean by that? The estrogens that are found in plant are the same. They are not. In fact, so that got legs. Are y'all with me? Did you all hear her question?
Yes.
That got legs. And a lot of people, listen folks, even the professional people out there are largely uninformed on these issues. Are you with me on this?
Yes.
Yeah. And so it got legs. Did I not write Mark Messina's name on the board yesterday?
Yes.
He is the world authority if there was one on soy. And I'm fortunate to be his friend, and we talk as frequently as needed. And when this started surfacing, I thought that can't be true. So I called Mark, and he said, I'll send you a page of research that shows that this is false. And this was 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, that already that much research was showing it was false. But everybody believes that, don't they, out there, pretty much, that soy's better.
I was wondering if the meat industry, would promote that kind of thing just to discourage people from going vegetarian.
Quite possible.
Versus
But like I say,
the dairy industry.
quite possible. But like I say, I don't want to divert because of time issues today.
Yeah.
Neva is about to do recipe demos. Can you guys take a short break? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. No, that's okay. Take a quick break and we will come back with the recipe demos.